I'd like to introduce Andrew Grill.
Thanks, Nadio. I want to ask you all one simple question. Are you digitally curious? Now, you may say, well, of course I am. I'm here at an AI event. We're going to find out right here, right now, how digitally curious this room is. Can I get you all to stand up, please? We're going to have a little exercise, do this old school. I'm going to ask you 6 very simple questions. If you're doing what's on the screen, stay standing. If not, I'm going to get you to resume your seat. However, later on, if there's something on the screen you are doing, you can redeem yourself and stand up again. And let's start with an easy one. Stay standing if you've Googled yourself lately. Any curious Googlers out there? Come on, not everyone's Googled themselves. Okay, a few honest people here. The rest of you are Googlers, that's great. Question 2, stay standing or stand back up again if you've listened to a podcast in the last week. Okay, a few more curious people, that's good to see. Next one is actually really, really important, and I'll explain why in about 15 minutes. Stay standing or stand back up again if you've got multi-factor authentication turned on for everything. LinkedIn, Gmail, WhatsApp. Okay, I asked this question last Thursday at a cybersecurity conference and 40% of the room sat down. And what I said to them, I'll say to you, if you haven't got it turned on and you're sitting down, you are going to get hacked. I'll explain why in just a moment. All right, next one. Hopefully a few more will stand up. Stay standing or stand up if you've used AI to create an image. Okay, this one I basically asked for a beautiful photorealistic zebras drinking at a waterhole. You can also create action figures, collect the whole set. Who's done one of these? Yep. Next question. Stay standing or stand up if you've used AI to summarize a meeting. Tim was talking about Otter and other ones. This is my Otter AI, which I love. Final question to see how digitally curious this room is. Stay standing or stand up if you've bought some crypto. Okay, quite a curious room. Okay, sit down. Fantastic. The thing is, those 6 things are really easy to do. And I'd ask you to reflect tonight, tomorrow, next week, if you're not doing some of those, why? Now, I've been curious from a very young age. When I was 6 years old, I played with these 101 electronic kits. I bought burglar alarms and shortwave radios, and I played with this technology. And my first computer in 1980 was the dear old Sinclair ZX80. Who remembers this? Yeah. Now, a few weeks ago, I was at the Science Museum up the road, and I found it behind a glass case. So it's actually been around for quite some time. Show of hands, who here was born after 1983? Wow. I've been online longer than you've been alive. Back in 1983, I was dialing up. Remember this noise? Dialing up to the internet, is it going to connect? And I knew in 1983, I was so hooked on this online thing, my father had to get a second phone line. I was always dialed up and no one could get through. Now, today I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. Tim just threw a lot of information at you, and I'm going to give you a QR code at the end that will take you to a website that has all the tools I mentioned, a bunch of books, websites, everything you're going to need, and I guarantee you, you'll keep going back to it. And Nadio thankfully mentioned, yes, I wrote a book. I'm actually selling at the back. I'll sign it for just £20. I take Apple Pay, GPay. Also, I take cash. But it's a book that will actually help you become more digitally curious. But I think that the future actually belongs to the curious. I've had a number of discussions this morning before we even got started, and people are saying, yes, I'm very curious. And I've been curious from such a young age. I always used to ask the question, why? How does it work? And having trained as an engineer, we were taught to think of things from what we call first principles. If it's not working, why is it? Ask those curious questions. But when it comes to AI and what we're talking about today, we've actually had 10 years of innovation in just 2. What's happened so quickly has taken a lot of people by surprise. We could talk for a whole day on the education impacts on AI, the fact that in 2 years we've had such innovation that people just can't keep up. But curiosity will breed digital literacy. And I'm quite proud of, in the back of the book, I actually have 200 different terms that are explained in plain English. And when I was putting that together, I thought, all these buzzwords that I'm hearing that my friends ask me about, why not list them and actually have a paragraph on each? And that will help your digital literacy. But one of the other problems about AI is there's so much hype around AI. And again, I was having a discussion this morning. And in the book, I mentioned NFTs and metaverse, two words you probably haven't used the last 2 years. And when I saw that AI was becoming more and more of a thing, I was worried that it might have the same fate as those other two technologies, that it's a bit of a fad, everyone gets excited, and then we lose interest. But I firmly believe that AI is here to stay, and the fact that we've got a room full of people proves that. But if we're to talk about how we got here, I've got to go back to the very beginning, 1950, and Dr. Alan Turing, who wrote a paper called Computer, Machinery, and Intelligence. And the very first line of that paper asked the question, can machines think? That was 75 years ago. AI is not new. It's been around a long time, but only the last 2 or 3 years has it really caught the attention of the general community. 1956, John McCarthy held a 6-week workshop on artificial intelligence. So the word AI is nearly 70 years old. It's not new. But if we fast forward to 2017, some very smart researchers at Google wrote a paper titled Attention is All You Need. And this was the genesis of generative AI systems. And had they not made this discovery, we wouldn't be here talking about ChatGPT and other things. Who knows what happened on November 30th, 2022? This was the watershed day when ChatGPT was launched. And I'm wondering, show of hands, who knows what the GPT stands for in ChatGPT? More than normal, that's pretty good. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So the next pub quiz you're going to win because you know about all these terms. Generative because it refers to the model's ability to create or generate things from existing data. Pre-trained because it's been trained on things like the open internet. You can go to a website called commoncrawl.org and you can download the internet in a zip file. And that's been used for much of the training. And transformer, because going back to what Google developed, it allows a transformer architecture to happen and all these things that we want produced out of words and phrases and prompts become video, text, and audio. And often as a futurist, I'm asked, Andrew, how does ChatGPT actually work? So I asked it. And the very last line here is what's interesting. And what I'm going to do now is massively oversimplify how generative AI tools work. Essentially, they predict the next word in a sentence. Now, that is a massive oversimplification. Let me give you an example. If I ask you, who was the first person to land on the moon? You're going to yell out, it was Neil Armstrong. I know that to be true. I learned that at school. ChatGPT and other tools will give you the same response, but it has no idea if the answer's right. Mathematically, the most likely combination to that question, the answer is Neil and Armstrong. And that's why it does things like hallucination, and you should always check it. Here's a trick for you. Go into ChatGPT and ask it to draw you a picture of a watch with the hands at 12:22. It'll draw a watch with the hands at 10:10. Because its training model, it's seen so many watches online with the arms at 10:10 that that's all it knows. And the number of times I've done it, and it just gets it completely wrong. So how are other companies using AI? I do a lot of talks. In fact, I'm doing a talk tonight. I'm doing one for Dell tomorrow, one for Nokia on Wednesday. I'm always talking about AI, and people are saying, what are others doing? And how do we get to where they are? Let's look at one of the obvious ones, our friends at Amazon. 2 years ago, I stood on stage in Abu Dhabi with Werner Vogels, who is actually the CTO of Amazon. And he said, I don't know what the fuss about AI is. We've been using AI at Amazon for 25 years. And if you look at this slide that he put up, all the pink headings of all the areas in their business where they're using AI. And think about your own business. And are you using AI to any level of potential in those parts of your business? Tomorrow night, I'm talking to a bunch of people from Dell. And last year, I had the fortune of hearing their CTO, John Rosie, talk about how Dell is using AI as what they call customer zero. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say.
What makes your organization special? What is it about your company that differentiates you? Because the purpose of AI is to give you an advantage. At Dell, we went through that exercise, and it's pretty obvious. We picked 4 things that make us special. Our global supply chain, our global service organization, our global sales capability, and our global engineering capability. If any of those 4 get better in a material way, I win. In our sales activity, we know that our sales force is a powerful entity. It's one of the biggest enterprise sales force in the world. They have great effectiveness when they're in front of customers. We then did the process analysis and found that 40% of their time is preparing to get in front of customers. That is not valuable. And it turns out the problem in there was not they're doing something wrong, it's just they're navigating hundreds of sources of content and they spend all kinds of time finding information and organizing it before they come and talk to you. Sounds like a very good Gen AI use case. And so we are doing that. But imagine if every salesperson in Dell could be in front of customers 30% more. Material impact, I will make more money, I will win in the market, I will be successful. So that's the first step. Know what problem you are solving and make sure it aligns to your business and it's specific enough that you can do something with AI to it.
So 3 things there that I think John really called out. First of all, know what problem you're solving. AI is not always the answer. AI can be expensive to set into motion and to keep running. So think about the problem you're solving. Secondly, what makes you special as an organization? John talked about the 4 levers that he could pull, and if he made any of those more efficient, he would win. And they found a way to win. What he's talking about there is preparing for sales calls. You think about what you do. You go on LinkedIn, you Google them, who am I going to meet, what are their pain points? I've got to put some slides together that are unique for this client. That takes time. So they've worked out a way to save 30% of their time and make their salespeople 30% more efficient. Now, if I gave you the power to make your team 30% more efficient, I'm sure you'd jump at the chance. So the question always to me is, Andrew, how should I be using AI? Tim talked about a lot of great tools, and they're great, but what should we be doing with the output from these things? I think there are 3 or 4 things we should be doing. First of all, value creation. Can you make your organization and your processes more efficient? Can you have a deepening customer relationship by having better engagement? And can you reinvent? Can you look at something completely different that you're not doing today by asking all those questions you've always wanted to understand how you might beat your competition? AI can make you more competitive. It can actually, like John said, look at those things where you can win. And having all the best, brightest minds in the room can actually help you ask better questions about your company. Also, you can empower your talent. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussions today about AI and job losses and all those sorts of things. Well, I actually see a world where we have humans plus AI. And we talk about AI meaning artificial intelligence. I think we should think about it as augmented intelligence. Humans in the loop. Humans plus AI. And I really think that curiosity is a mindset. I've been curious all my life. I've written a book about it. People in the room have told me they're curious. But it really means that you're always questioning, what is that? How does it work? And how can I make my company better? One thing I think AI will massively change is how work gets done. And I want to use an explanation, an analogy, to explain how I think this is going to happen. I want to use the analogy of the internal combustion engine. That helicopter is powered by an internal combustion engine. There are so many things that we have to thank for it. But the engine wasn't a product. It's a technology that converts energy into mechanical work. When the engine was invented, suddenly we shifted who did work. The farmer no longer plowed the fields themselves. They drove a tractor powered by the internal combustion engine. We took this concept of converting energy into work, in this case mechanical work, and we applied it everywhere. We reinvented our transportation system, we reinvented our manufacturing ecosystem, everything changed. I think AI has a similar path. It's a machine that converts data into intellectual work, and we can apply it anywhere there is data worth looking at. It has the ability to shift the relationship and balance of who does work in this world, in this case, cognitive work. So let's go back to the title of my talk. Let's see where we're at with AI in 2025. Tim spent a lot of time talking about generative AI tools that are there today. But I want to move beyond Gen AI. We think we've just mastered it, but actually there are other things we need to look at. Gen AI is good, but they think brilliantly, but they don't actually do anything. They give us the answer, and it's still up to us. We're still the doers. So what you're going to hear a lot about today, this week, this year, is agentic AI, or AI agents. These are AI tools that allow you, or they will actually perceive, reason, and then act. They'll start doing things for you. They will become the doers. Let me give you a good example. I used to work for IBM, literally across the road in the old IBM building. And I had a wonderful executive assistant called Karen. Karen would actually anticipate my every need as an executive assistant. It was fantastic. So I'd have an email come into my inbox saying, Andrew, we need you in IBM headquarters in Armonk next week. So Karen would see the email. She would then book the BA flight with my membership number and the seat I liked. She would also book me into the Hilton Fashion District at a high floor because she knew that's where I like to stay. It would then go into my calendar and I would then go, right, it's all sorted. Karen was essentially working as an agentic AI. It was thinking, sensing, and acting. And right now, there are tools that can do that. But the big thing about agentic AI will be trust. I trust an agentic AI system to book a calendar meeting. I'm not sure if I trust it yet to actually access my bank account and transfer funds. So while that's nirvana and it doing everything for us, we need to solve the trust issue. And if you want to see what agentic AI looks like, go back to the 2013 movie Her by Spike Jonze. It stars Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. And Scarlett is the voice of this agent who does similar things that Karen did. Goes through his email box and says, I've replied to those things for you on your behalf. And here's the thing though. AI won't replace people. People who use AI replace people who don't. And this is a very often overused phrase. And I believe part of it, because some roles will naturally change. But the fact I think you're all here today is you want to get ahead. You want to see how you can use AI in your business to get ahead of your competitors. So I think this phrase actually needs a third chapter. AI demands better people. Not nicer people or smarter people, but AI does things at speed and scale. So if it's able to do things for you in milliseconds, are you ready as a human being to take those outputs and make sense of them? Are you able to use your ethical framework to work out whether what you've been told is right or wrong? So AI will give us the answer much faster. Are we ready yet to use the answers it gives us? I think we're also going to start to see the rise of the always-on company expert. If you have an internal GPT, and we'll talk about that in a minute, that knows everything about your organization, it's like everyone having the answer to your problem available 24/7. And I think in 2025, we're going to start to see AI on the org chart. Not just the physical org chart of all of our humans, but also all the agents that they're using. Because AI is not going away. So why not embrace it? Put it on the org chart and say, okay, it's there. It's a 24/7 team member. How are we going to use it? And how will it augment all of our human workers as well? And I think also we're not far away from having AI in the boardroom. Not suggesting for a moment that we replace board members with AI, but let me give you another personal example. In London, I sit on a charity board, and I've been on the board for 2 years. I've seen 2 years of financial statements, I've seen 2 years of meeting minutes, and I know a little bit about the organisation. But it's been going for 60 years. And let's say there's a critical business decision. And I've trained an AI with every financial statement, every board paper, every competitive analysis about this organisation into an AI. So I can ask it any question I want. Are you going to ask the board member with 2 years' experience or the board member with 60 years' experience? So I want you to think about AI as becoming a decision partner. Not making the decisions for you, but going through at speed and scale and reading more than you ever could to actually come up with a good answer. It means we're going to be thinking very differently in the age of AI. And I want you to think about AI as your cognitive partner, that thing that actually helps aid your thinking. Who here remembers Where's Wally, the cartoon books for kids? Many of you. I grew up with Where's Wally, late 80s, early 90s. He was a British author who drew these cartoons. Those that have never seen it, because you're born after 1983, basically Wally had a red and white cap and a red and white striped shirt. And he is hidden somewhere in this picture. And the object was for children, including me, to find Wally. Imagine for a moment that's your business, or your market, or your competitive landscape. It's very noisy. It's full of data. It's full of confusion. And somewhere in there is Wally. Is your gold in there somewhere? How do you find Wally? Being the curious soul I am, I thought, can I use AI to find Wally? So I used Perplexity, uploaded the photo you just saw. The only context I gave it was find Wally in this picture. I didn't tell it who Wally was, what he looked like, why I was finding him, what the picture was, and I said, draw a red circle around Wally. My AI found Wally. So think about AI in your business, finding your Wally, finding the gold in all that noise, and using AI to fast track to make better business decisions. So even over the last few months, we've seen AI move from just generative AI to make action figures, to then become agentic. We've now got AI reasoning. And often when people ask me questions and I don't know the answer, I'll go to my favorite tool, Perplexity, and I'll ask it a question. And so a few months ago, when I was looking at a way to demonstrate how reasoning models work, I asked Perplexity, design me a question to show how reasoning works. So I asked an AI about asking AI. And so this is what it said I should use as an example. Assume the law of physics on Earth. A small strawberry is put into a normal cup. The cup is placed upside down on the table. Someone then takes the cup and puts it inside a microwave. Where's the strawberry now? Explain your reasoning step by step. Who thinks they know where the strawberry is? It's on the table. Why? This thing called gravity meant that it fell out of the cup. And I thought, let's see how an AI system would handle that question. So I used ChatGPT 4, asked the same question. Off it goes. It's thinking about that, reasoning. It got it horribly wrong. It said that basically the strawberry is at the lowest point of the cup, but when I said the word inverted, it means turning upside down. And so ChatGPT 4 got it wrong. It's not very useful to me. So then I thought, okay, I'm going to change the model now. Instead of 4.0, I'm going to change it to 0.1, which is the reasoning model, and I'm going to ask it the same question. So now what it's doing is it's thinking more deeply. It's taking longer. It's revisiting the question. It's lifting the cup. It actually took 22 seconds to work out what took you a millisecond, but it thought more deeply. So these tools are now not just going to give you a one-shot answer. If you give it time and information, it will think more deeply. Now, back in late January this year, DeepSeek, which I mentioned already, came about. So I thought, how would DeepSeek do it? It got the answer right in just 6 seconds. So these reasoning models are there, and you should look at how to use them. All the tools you use today have a new button you may not be aware of called Deep Research or Deep Thinking. Grok has it, Perplexity has it, ChatGPT has it. It will basically think longer and harder and go and look at other resources. I use it all the time. Last week I was at a cybersecurity conference. I am not a cybersecurity expert. I wanted really good use cases. So I sent it off on a mission. Told it what I was doing, where I was speaking, what I needed, and about 5 minutes later, it essentially prepared me a research paper with everything referenced. That was a good use of my time. So I encourage you to start pushing the other buttons on these tools to see what it gives you. Let me give you another example. A friend of mine is a TV producer, and one of her best friends is a teacher. They met for a drink at a pub. The teacher ran in a bit flustered, said, I can't stay for long. I've got to do the lesson plan for the kids tomorrow at school, and I'm a bit worried that I haven't done it yet. And my television producer friend, who is very AI savvy, said, you are staying for a second drink. Let's put your lesson plan requirements into ChatGPT and see what happens. Out popped a beautifully formatted lesson plan for her year 6s, and the school teacher went, I didn't know AI could do that. She had that aha moment you only get when you keep playing with this tool and wondering if it's able to do things that you didn't think that were possible. So try that. Now, I mentioned before that I think the real power of AI is going to be inside the enterprise GPT. Having a ChatGPT-like interface sitting on top of all the data in your company. Now, it's not trivial to do that. It's not cheap to do that, but that's where I think we'll move to. But anecdotally, a lot of law firms have started doing this, and I've been speaking to lawyers, and they're saying, it's not very good at the moment. It's not been trained really well. And one lawyer friend who's a partner said, I actually spent half a day using the tool. I went back to do it manually. So the problem is people get fatigue. We give them the tools, they don't quite work, and they go, oh, I'll just do it myself. But I really think that going inside the organization will be a real benefit. And Nadia mentioned that the book actually has its own GPT. So I thought, can I actually make essentially an enterprise GPT out of the book? And so Nadia helped me develop this. We uploaded the PDF of the book. And a book about AI that was published last year, in many ways, is out of date. So you can ask it questions about what's happened since it was published. Can you tell me what chapter quantum computing has covered? And we think this is the first book in the world, and it was published last September, to have its own GPT. And my publisher, Wiley, went, can you do that? Absolutely. Now, more often than not, in April, May this year, we're starting to hear from CEOs who are going, we are doing AI. Famously, the CEO of Shopify said before asking for more headcount resources, teams must demonstrate why they can't get what they want done using AI. And Duolingo's CEO said pretty much the same thing. I think this is actually a little bit unhelpful because these CEOs are probably AI natives. They live and breathe this. They know how it works. And if I told all of you that we're going to run a marathon around the sandpit today before you get lunch, you'd be going, oh, didn't think that was part of the deal. Didn't come here for that. So what's holding us back? Now, I live in the trenches. I've done 48 engagements this year on AI. I've been everywhere from Fujifilm that does printers and copiers to a company that looks using magnetic rays into oil refinery pipes. I'm in the trenches every week. I'm in front of groups like you who are saying, we want to hear about what we should be doing with AI. And if you read your LinkedIn feed, you will think we're all screwed because everyone's moved to agentic and it's all happening now. But it isn't. So I reverse engineered for my 48 different engagements why I think we're being held back. And the first thing is it's training. So Duolingo and Shopify say we're doing AI, to which you go, I'm still not sure how to use ChatGPT or Copilot, and Andrew's told me about these other tools. I need you to help me understand how do I use these tools to get my job done today. Second thing is budgets. Most of the company I've spoken to in this part of the year that are planning for next year are not putting a lot of money aside for training and AI deployment. They're not putting it in the budget just yet, so it's not going to happen. Data has been a problem for years. The quality of data has always been an issue in most organizations. It becomes more of an issue when you want to train an AI system. Garbage in, garbage out. So the data has to be in the right area. And also process. You can't just put AI on top of your already broken human-first processes. AI will really work when you re-engineer the way you get work done in the age of AI. And my advice for all my clients is start small and scale fast. So Tim talked about a lot of things that weren't ChatGPT. I want to go deeper into 3 particular tools I think you should be aware of and how you can use them. The first is Notebook LM from Google. Who's heard of Notebook LM? More than most of my audiences. So you're going to know what I'm going to do next, most of you. When I found this, I thought this is a pretty cool tool. So uploaded the PDF of the book, started asking it questions, and then this caught my eye on the right-hand side, an audio overview. So I pushed the button, waited 5 minutes, and I got back a 31-minute podcast with a discussion about the book, which sounds a bit like this.
So we're going to dig into what he really means by this whole digital curiosity thing, why it should matter to you.
Businesses led by digitally curious people are, well, seriously outperforming everyone else.
They're not just keeping up, it sounds like. They're gaining a real edge.
Exactly.
He even has this concept, he calls it the Starbucks test. Have you ever noticed how you'll be like overhearing people at a coffee shop and suddenly everyone's talking about some new tech? That's your cue.
So I'm sure many of you have done that. Now, that podcast that it produced, 31 minutes, was so good, I actually published it as a real podcast. I obviously explained that it was AI generated, but when I show that to most of my clients, they go, I didn't know I could do that. Here's a great use case, because it's a bit of a gimmick, and this is version 1, so the next versions will be my voice and Nadio's voice, and we can sound a bit different. But if you've got a really long process that no one ever reads, maybe it's a compliance process, why not turn it into a podcast? They can listen to it on the way home, you can ask them questions about it. Now, for those of you that have played with it, I encourage you to hit the interactive mode button. If I was online live here, we could start talking to those presenters and ask them questions and actually have a two-way dialogue. It's getting much, much smarter. Who here's heard of Otter AI? I love Otter. I've been using it for years. So this is actually an example that brings Nadio in here. This is our Education AI podcast. I put the audio in there. So it gave me a nice transcript. It gave me a summary of it. And then some of you can see down the bottom here, I could start asking it questions. Otter has its own GPT. Now, when I wrote the book, I used 60 guests from my podcast to go into the book. That's nearly 60 hours of podcast. That's a lot to listen to. So all the podcasts I put into Otter, I then had the transcript. I then could ask it questions. Where was the thing where they talked about quantum? Where was the good discussion about self-sovereign identity? So I was able to have, rather than having to write 74,000 words from scratch, I started with 500,000 words that I could actually condense down. So I've been using AI to write the book. And the final one, and Tim mentioned it, is Perplexity. This is my favorite tool because I think it just works better than the others. It gives better responses, the way it lays it out. The day after DeepSeek got into the news, they had run their own DeepSeek server on their own platform in the US and actually offered it. So they're doing things, and I hear yesterday that Apple are talking about buying them, and Meta also talked to them. They're doing something right, so I would encourage you to use Perplexity. But as I said before, I want you to think about AI as that decision partner, asking it a question. Here's one thing you can add to all your prompts to be more valuable. When I ask AI a question, I follow it up with, and justify your response. Because what I find then is it exposes its thinking. And I can then say, I understand how it's got to there. I know why it's thinking that way. I agree with that. I'm using my critical thinking. So just by adding a few things to your prompt and asking it to justify what it's giving you can actually make it more and more valuable. So I've spoken for the last 30 minutes or so about all the good things about AI. But what I need to do now as a public service announcement is talk about responsible use of AI. And what I want to play you next is a couple of years ago, I went to an AI conference, CogX, at the O2, and Stephen Fry was on stage. And he spoke about how his voice had been used without his knowledge. Let's have a listen.
So here's a short extract of me performing the commentary for a film about a Dutch resistance group's fight against the Nazis.
14th of May, 1940. Germany invades the Netherlands. Reichskommissar Arthur Seyss-Inquart appoints SS Hauptsturmführer Ferdinand Aus der Funten to ensure that the Netherlands is cleansed of Jews.
I said not one word of that. It was a machine. Yes, shocked me. They used my reading of just 7 audiobooks, the Harry Potter novels, and from that data set, an AI of my voice was created, and it made that new narration. What I played you included, as you heard, a variety of German and Dutch names and general vocabulary. Hauptsturmführer, for example, Arthur Seyss-Inquart. All those names and all those words, of course, are not in Rowling's books.
So voice cloning is there, and this is from a couple of years ago. So being the curious person I am, I thought, I wonder if I could create my own Andrew voice clone. So Tim's already mentioned, I went to 11 labs, and I paid my £5, and you've been listening to me. Let's see how close it got. Hi, everyone. Yes, this is really me. It's AI Andrew. Pretty convincing, isn't it? Now, I've been using this a lot. A few weeks ago, I did a great podcast with an opera singer, a friend of mine. She has an amazing story about how she, at the last moment, sang on the stage at the Sydney Opera House. Great podcast. At a coffee shop, editing it, thinking, I need a killer intro for this. In the coffee shop, wanted to publish it, thought, do I go home, set the studio up, write the script, record my voice? No. So I uploaded the whole podcast into Otter, got the transcript, put it into Perplexity and said, Perplexity, give me a killer 1-minute opening script. I then put the script into 11 labs, published it. No one knows it's an AI intro, so I'm using it all the time. Video is actually pretty good. This is from a year ago. This is AI Andrew. But most of you a couple of weeks ago would have seen that Google has released VO3. This even blows my mind about how good it is. There are so many examples on the internet. What I want to play you next is one that shows off how it can clone video and voice at the same time.
Oh boy, I love accents. Can't wait for summer, eh?
Need to get inside, it's so cold.
It's freezing up here. We make the best food here.
Which is the fastest way to the airport?
I need a drink.
Hey, mate, want to come to the pub?
We should get something to eat, no?
Hey mate, want to come to the boozer?
So now video cloning is there. So let me go back to our little exercise we did at the beginning of my talk, and those of you who sat down because you didn't have multi-factor authentication turned on. Let me give you a little scenario. A hacker sits there and they get into your Gmail because your password's weak. You have no idea they're there. They sit there for weeks, possibly months, learning the names of your children, your parents, your spouse, where you like going for holidays, all the things that only a close personal friend or family member would know. They then clone your voice and video, and they call you in a panic, or they call a loved one in a panic asking for money. So what you need to combat these cyber criminals in a very AI world is you need a family password. You need an old school way of basically being the criminals. And if you're in business and you're on LinkedIn and have a position of authority, you also need a team password. A word or phrase that only you and the closest people to you know. And you might go, Andrew, that's pretty far-fetched, that won't happen to me. Well, January last year, the engineering firm Arup had a deep fake of their CFO call someone senior in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong employee transferred $25 million in 15 separate transactions before he thought, this just isn't right. And I got multiple examples of where that's happening. So it can and will happen to you if you haven't got two-factor on and you haven't got a family password. Now, as I said at the beginning, I was going to throw, and I have thrown a lot of information at you, and at the end we'll have the QR code. The great thing is, though, that in this room, in your organization, you already have all the answers. In every group and every team, I think there are two tribes. There's the going digital. Some of you are represented here today, very senior, very experienced, but your digital skills are developing. Then there are the born digital, those born after 1983. You live and breathe this technology. Your first toy was a smartphone. The two tribes need each other. And the best way to get them together is to run a hackathon. These are not new, but when I put this in front of clients, they go, isn't that for developing tech? Yes. You can also use a hackathon to bring those two tribes together and nut out problems around how you might use AI in your business. So I've got a bunch of resources. I'm here today with some books. I'd love you to take a copy away, paying me for it, of course, obviously. There's the podcast there as well. But as the actionable futurist, I want to leave you with 5 things that I want you to think about today, tomorrow, and next week. The first one is, be more digitally curious. If you didn't do one of those 6 things, think about why and what's holding you back. Second, try out 5 new AI tools, ones that Tim have mentioned, the one that I've mentioned on the QR code. Investigate agentic AI. People are going to be talking about it. The software that you use today, the SaaS software, the cloud software, does it have an agentic part in there as well? Develop an AI action plan. What are you going to do to take advantage of many of the things that I've talked about this morning? And why not run a hackathon? Here's the QR code. Scan it, bookmark it. It will take you to a wealth of resources. I know this is useful because every time I put it up, there is a long tail where weeks after, people are coming back and looking at the QR code. Nadia, I think we've got some time for questions. I'm going to pause now and say thank you very much.